When people talk about DC K.O, the conversation usually starts with Superman, with gods, with magic, with overwhelming strength. But the most dangerous character in the entire event isn't the strongest, it's the fastest. In DC K.O, the Flash isn't treated like comic relief, evacuation support, or the guy who shows up late to crack jokes. He's treated like a walking existential threat, because when DC removes moral safety nets, removes hesitation, and removes holding back, the Flash stops being a hero. He becomes a problem. To understand why Flash matters so much in DC K.O, you have to understand one simple truth about the DC universe. Strength breaks worlds. Magic rewrites rules. But speed decides outcomes, and no one controls time better than the Flash. Throughout most DC stories, Flash is restrained by one thing above all else: consequence. Every time he runs too fast, history bends. Every time he pushes too far, reality cracks. So Flash learns to slow himself down, to act like a hero instead of a god. DC K.O removes that luxury. In this event, hesitation gets people killed. Seconds matter. And speed is no longer a tool, it's a weapon. Flash enters DC K.O, already operating near the upper limits of the Speed Force, not casually jogging through fights, but reacting at levels where cause and effect barely exist. He isn't responding to danger. He's arriving before danger becomes real. That alone puts him in a category almost no one else can touch. Because in DC K.O, power escalation is everywhere. Gods clash, heroes collide, reality itself strains under the pressure. But Flash exists outside that escalation curve. He doesn't need to overpower anyone, he just needs a fraction of a moment, and the event makes that terrifyingly clear. One of the biggest shifts in DC K.O is how Flash is framed mentally. He's no longer optimistic or carefree, he's calculating, focused, heavy with responsibility. He understands something the others don't. If things go too far, he's the last line of defense. Not Superman, not Batman, not the gods. Flash. Because Flash can still run when everything else breaks. The Speed Force isn't just speed. It's time, motion, probability, and momentum given form. It allows Flash to move between instants, to think in compressed timelines, to experience entire battles in the space between heartbeats. In DC K.O, that ability becomes crucial. While other heroes are reacting to devastation, Flash is watching timelines fracture. He's seeing ripple effects before they happen. He understands how close reality is to collapsing, not theoretically but mathematically, and that awareness isolates him, because nobody else can truly comprehend what he sees. This is where Flash becomes dangerous. Not because of how fast he runs, but because of what he knows. DC K.O repeatedly reinforces that Flash isn't just participating in the chaos, he's managing it. He's adjusting outcomes subtly, preventing domino effects that would shatter entire worlds if left unchecked. And he's doing it alone? That pressure forces Flash into a mindset he usually avoids. Normally, Flash believes in second chances, in saving everyone, in undoing mistakes. DC K.O doesn't give him that option. Some moments can't be reversed. Some fights can't be slowed. Some outcomes must be accepted or prevented before they exist. That's the burden Flash carries in this event, and it's why his presence feels ominous instead of hopeful. When Superman gains Shazam's power, the universe reacts. Power spikes. Stakes escalate. Everyone feels it. Flash feels it first, because Speed Force users are tied directly to changes in reality. When magic and cosmic power surge simultaneously, it destabilizes the temporal flow. Time doesn't break, it warps, and Flash is the only one who notices. That puts him in a terrifying position. Because if Superman with divine magic goes too far, Flash is the only one fast enough to do anything about it. Not punch him, not overpower him, but move around him. This is something DC K.O implies without ever spelling it out. Flash doesn't beat gods by strength. He beats them by acting first. Speed Force reactions occur before conscious thought, before intent fully forms, before attacks register. Which means Flash exists in a space where even Superman, empowered by magic, is still reacting. That doesn't mean Flash would win in a straight fight. It means the fight might never happen, and that's what makes him the most dangerous character in the event. Because Flash doesn't escalate conflict, he edits it. DC K.O. also leans into one of Flash's most terrifying abilities, his capacity to run away from reality. At multiple points, it becomes clear that if the situation collapses completely, Flash has an option no one else does. He can leave. Not spatially, temporally. He can outrun the moment itself, and that possibility hangs over the entire event like a loaded gun. Because every time Flash runs back in time, the universe pays a price. New timelines form, paradoxes stack, consequences multiply. Flash knows this better than anyone. That's why his restraint is scarier than his speed. He's capable of resetting everything, and he chooses not to until he might have to. DC K.O. turns Flash into a moral pressure point. He represents the final escalation, not in power, but in choice. If Flash decides the timeline's broken beyond repair, no one can stop him from trying to fix it. Not Batman, not Superman, not the gods themselves. That's why Flash is treated with such gravity in the story. Other characters may not articulate it, but they feel it. They sense that if Flash starts running for real, something irreversible is about to happen. In many ways, Flash becomes the audience surrogate. He sees how insane the situation has become. He understands how unnatural the power levels are. He knows that this isn't how the universe is supposed to function, and yet he keeps moving forward. Because stopping would be worse. DC K.O. doesn't glorify Flash's power. It weaponizes his responsibility. Every step he takes carries risk. Every decision echoes across timelines. And unlike Superman, Flash doesn't get divine validation. He gets anxiety. He gets doubt. He gets the weight of knowing that he might be the one who breaks everything trying to save it. That's what makes his portrayal so effective. Flash isn't the strongest character in DC K.O. He's the most stressed, and that's exactly how it should be. Because speed without restraint is chaos, and Flash is the only one fast enough to outrun the consequences of his own actions, which makes him the only one who truly fears them. By the end of DC K.O., Flash stands as a reminder of what the event is really about. Not who would win in a fight, but who decides when the fight never happens. Superman with Shazam's power may dominate the battlefield, but Flash dominates time. And in a universe where everything is breaking, time is the only thing that still matters. That's why the Flash in DC K.O. isn't just another hero. He's the failsafe, the last option, the one man fast enough to save the universe or rewrite it, and that makes him the most dangerous man alive.